And greetings! In this video, I want to walk you through how to configure an IAT survey for data collection. Again, this is a quick start video, just like the others in our series, so this is not everything you need to know, but it should get you up and running. Again, I advise all viewers of this video series to check out our IAT Gen paper, as well as advanced user guides, examples, and more at our website, www.iatgen.wordpress.com. That said, if you're like me, you want to open it up and play with it, and so here you go. In this video, we're going to look at what the IAT Gen survey consists of, and then learn how you can modify it to do what you want. I have assumed that you've already set the visual theme to minimal 2014 and turned page transitions off. At some point, Qualtrics will make it so this happens automatically, and you won't need to worry about that. But for now, I'm going to assume that you've done that. Now, let's go ahead and start by looking at the survey flow. By default, the IAT Gen survey flow starts with this branch, which detects if the user's on a mobile device. If the user's on a cell phone, for instance, then they won't have a keyboard and they won't be able to complete the IAT. So by default, the IAT Gen survey screens them out. This will keep people who can't take the survey from taking the survey. If you have reason to want to modify that, you're welcome to, but this is how we use it at our institution. And we typically put documentation about this in our institutional review board applications and in our consent to say that participants must have a device with a keyboard to participate. Typically, I just say a computer with a keyboard as well. From there, then we have a little placeholder that says pre-IAT content. Of course, you can have anything you want here, so this is just kind of a dummy to stand in for anything that might come before your IAT. The IAT is represented by this randomizer, which I'm going to minimize for a moment, and then anything that comes after the IAT. So really, this is just a very generic skeleton of a survey. The IAT is represented by this randomizer, and I'll explain how that works in a moment. But let's just assume you've built a ton of content in a survey, and you want to position the IAT somewhere. You're welcome to do that. You can just move the IAT by moving this randomizer. Now, what is in the randomizer is actually four different, it says IAT 1, 2, 3, and 4, four different permutations of the IAT. The short version of this is you have two targets. In this example, we have insects and flowers. And you have two categories, say positive and negative. In general, it's advisable that people counterbalance the left and right positions of these things. And so if you cross that, you get four different starting configurations. So target A could start on the right with positive or with negative, or it could start on the left with positive or with negative. And because of that, we need to create four different versions of the IAT that has all four of those counterbalances hard-coded into the survey. Unfortunately, there's no way for us to just make one piece of code that does the counterbalancing for you. So instead, IAT Gen builds four IATs and then randomly assigns participants to one of the four counterbalancing combinations. So essentially, it's the exact same thing. It counterbalances. Essentially, it's the exact same thing. It counterbalances the starting positions left and right for your targets and attributes. From here, we can change anything we want. So we probably would want some consent documentation, so you can add in additional blocks. Maybe we put in some consent questionnaire or documentation. Upload a consent form, something like that. My institution has more stringent consent requirements usually. And we could add in survey logic around that, so you have to consent to participate, and we could make this a maybe we have some questionnaire measure in here. So you get the idea, right? You can build a Qualtrics survey. Maybe we have some demographics questions here. Right, so you build your IAT survey. And when you do that, one thing you want to make sure is that when you're building and adding and moving things around, nothing gets added to this randomizer. Sometimes, depending on whatever thing you played with last, it might put something in there. You just make sure nothing gets added in there, and you're good to go. So we could have our consent form and our questionnaire, and maybe we've got some post-IAT content, and you're good to go. Of course, you can always do things like add manipulations or counterbalance the position of the IAT with other things. So if we wanted to have some questionnaire and the IAT themselves be counterbalanced, you can always do that. You can put the IAT in a randomizer along with some explicit measures and just have it evenly present these. So now we're going to counterbalance which comes first, this questionnaire or the IAT. So in other words, you can do anything to your heart's content with this survey. This is a Qualtrics survey. You can take full advantage of the survey editing feature. So there's really nothing you can't do, other than please don't modify the IAT contents or it might not work. Speaking of things not to modify, let's briefly discuss a few things you should not modify. Please do not modify the names of the questions. The names of the questions will save the data in specific places that our analysis tool will look for automatically. You don't have to do any data cleaning in IAT Gen. Our tool will do it for you, although you're welcome to do it manually, but our tool will do it for you, and it looks for the information under these question names, so please don't change them. Next, if you try to modify these, the contents of this, even in HTML view, there's some cascading style sheets, and there's some instructions. You can change the instruction contents here if you actually want, but you should be very careful to pilot test if you make any changes, because it's easy to accidentally damage the functioning of the IAT. Of course, if you change the directions in one permutation, you should probably change them in all four. Other things not to change, there's a bunch of JavaScript that runs in the background that makes this thing work. Definitely don't want to modify that. All the HTML and JavaScript is hard-coded by the IAT Gen tool and embedded into the survey for you. Before the invention of IAT Gen, if you wanted to run an IAT in Qualtrics, you would have had to manually write that code for all 28 IAT blocks, which was not fun. All right, so from here, your survey is ready to launch, and you're welcome to go ahead and launch it. Just do however you launch your Qualtrics surveys, get your link, and you're good to go. Some other things not to change in the look and feel. We advise people not to make any changes in here. We are in the minimal 2014 theme. We do not have page transitions. Again, these page transitions add JavaScript that interfere with how the IAT functions. And so any attempt to change your visual theme may compromise the IAT. If you want to use other visual themes for your survey, you can always chain surveys together by having survey flow, having one survey end and then lead into the next one. So you're welcome to do that as well. That's all there is to it, folks. In the next video, I will show you how to analyze data from a Qualtrics IAT. So stay tuned.